felt like I was in that 70s show, and I was just seeing a whole bunch of like tie-dye.
We all need that little bit of support and encouragement.
Like
saying,
everyone is beautiful, and that they're like thriving with it and they're confident with it, and it makes me feel more confident with it.
Like type 1 diabetes is so hard to begin with. It's like, let's not make your life harder with your clothes options. Hey Palmr fam, I'm Rebecca,
and I'm Nick.
and welcome back to the Urgent Lows with Palmr, where we talk about lifestyle and type 1 diabetes.
Here, we believe in self-care through life's challenges. We are back, and if you have not watched our last episode, we had Michelle on, and it was an amazing episode. But now we have her beautiful 2 daughters on, and we are so excited to have them here and now hear their side of the story. So thank you, girls, for so much for being here.
Thank you.
I'll let you introduce yourselves.
My name is Alessandra.
I'm Isabella.
And we're both type 1 diabetic sisters.
So when were you both diagnosed? At what age?
I was diagnosed at 18 months.
Same.
I was diagnosed at 3 years old.
So why don't you both tell us a little bit about your diagnosis story and how that all went about?
Yeah, so I was, again, diagnosed at 18 months old. That story, I know in the past episode, my mom kind of spoke about it. I wasn't, very coherent at that time. But just growing up with type 1 in, 1999 and going through the early 2000s through elementary school, being the only kid with type 1 diabetes was really weird. But I think the benefit, and I almost want to say like beauty of being diagnosed so young is that you don't know any type of life, any other kind of life.
Yeah.
So I definitely saw like when I went to school, like, oh, my other friends or even people within my family, like they can eat whatever and it be fine. But then I was like, oh, but I just had to take insulin shots and like have some finger pokes and like go on from there.
Yeah.
I think it was just more so like transitioning into that first, second, third grade where I was just like, oh, I have to keep on going to the nurse's office. And there was fun aspects of part of it in the way where you would always have your buddy to go down with you and you can select, like I would select my best friend and we would go and whatnot. But I just know that there are other times, like I believe it was kindergarten, where I got so low that I just had an episode of it wouldn't be like a seizure or anything, but almost like a hallucination. Or just when you go so low, you don't know what you're doing. Knocked everything off of my teacher's desk, had like a meltdown.
Oh, wow.
And she knew like immediately, like, oh, this has to be a low. And I just remember her grabbing me, running me to the nurse's office, and then me coming to. And then that was just like, oh, and coming to, and I remember seeing my mom and my aunt there and my nurse and just kind of being like, what happened? What went on? And so I think that was my first like really remembrance of like embarrassment with type 1.
Yeah.
Where it was just kind of like, oh, now I have to go back to class. All these other like kids know what happened, but I don't. And then it's kind of like, oh, are you okay? And it's like, I'm fine, but like I'm also so embarrassed.
Yeah.
And so then I just growing up I didn't want anyone to know that I was type 1 diabetic, which was super easy to hide at the time because I didn't have an insulin pump. I was taking shots at home. I just would have to pick my finger at the nurse's office and whatnot. But I could very much like contain, and I would just not say when I was low, just because I just didn't want any attention to myself because that first low was so traumatic at school. But just going into middle school, that was really difficult. I mean, being like a female with type 1 and being one that is very like, I just don't ever want attention on me. I didn't want anyone to know I was type 1. And that just came with major challenges in middle school. But middle school was the first time where there was another type 1 diabetic at my school. It was but it was a boy. So like, and he was very much like, I don't want to talk about it. And I was like, that's fine. We don't have to talk about it. But just kind of going through those puberty ages in middle school is brutal, and having to like deal with the just very female side of middle school, but then also be like, okay, but my blood sugar is like 60 going down and like I need to address that.
Yeah.
But then getting my pump at that time was really amazing.
So that was in middle school when you got it?
Yeah, well, I was 9, so late. So end of 4th grade is when I got it. But then I also got, I think, the Dexcom. Maybe that would have been ninth grade. It's kind of all merged together at this point. But just getting the pump, and that was really amazing and feeling like I had more control with that. But then when the Dexcom came around, I was like, wow, not having to like poke your finger all the time, but you still had to calibrate it in the mornings and the afternoons and at night. Um, and then just going through high school, I think was the most like you didn't go to the nurse's office anymore. You had to kind of learn how to manage it yourself.
Mm-hmm.
And also, my sister, I think she was diagnosed by the time I was in middle school, and just kind of seeing her go through it. It was just overall just a really difficult, isolating time
Yeah.
because I didn't have anyone to talk to my age,
Mm-hmm.
like about type 1 diabetes. I didn't know how to like relate to my sister about it, honestly.
Mm-hmm.
And it just was always something that I was just like, if I just don't talk about it and we just sweep it under the rug, let's just continue on.
Yeah.
And I knew that like in the beginning I felt really bad, but then when Bella got into Dancing for Diabetes, I was like, okay, she has a community.
Mm-hmm.
She has someone that she can talk to. She's okay.
Yeah.
As long as like she's okay, then it's like,
Mhm.
okay, I don't have to talk about myself type of thing.
Yeah.
But
We've experienced that. We've talked about it in previous podcasts that Parker almost felt like a sense of responsibility that his sister got it. It's like, like, no, my sister getting it. Like, almost like she got it because of him, which is funny because, I mean, it's not funny whatsoever, but it's ironic that when Evie did get it, she thought everyone got type 1 diabetes at a certain point in life. So she was just like, oh, my brother has it. Now I have it. It's just part of life. Now, like, we both have it type of thing. So was that, like, similar to you? Or did you realize that not every kid has it?
No, I think I realized that because I mean I was 3, so
Yeah.
it was like I had a lot of memories before that,
Mm-hmm.
but oh no, I didn't. Like I remember like watching my sister do her sites and stuff, and
Mm.
I didn't think I was gonna get it. Like I was just like, oh, like she's doing this. Like I had like thoughts about like what if this was me? Like what if this happened to me one day?
Mm-hmm.
I would be like, I want diabetes. I want this attention. And I was 3. Like I just want to let you know this is like 2, 3. But yeah, I mean, no, I didn't really think anything like that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And that thought quickly changed once you
Yeah.
grew up with type 1.
Yeah, because I had a lot of friends I grew up with, so yeah, I knew it wasn't very common.
Yeah.
So yeah.
So do you feel like growing up with it and kind of being not really surrounded by a community, did you feel like you wanted to hide that you had type 1 diabetes most of the time? And like, was there like a certain age that you hit and you're like, okay, like I have type 1 diabetes. I'm not going to be like embarrassed by it or anything like that.
yeah, truth be told, only like I think 5 years ago
Yeah.
did I feel like, okay, I'm type 1 diabetic. Like this is actively a part of me.
Yeah.
I think growing up, just not having anyone around me, I just wanted to be like everybody else. Like
Yeah.
I just wanted to just go to school normally.
Mhm.
I didn't want to go to the doctor's office or the nurse's office all the time. I didn't want to have to poke my finger. And I think especially like feeling low.
Yeah.
Like I was just like, I just don't want to feel low anymore.
Yeah.
And then I think like I also hated the pity, if that makes sense.
Yeah.
Like I never wanted anyone to feel bad for me. Like
Mhm.
I don't want you to look at me and be like, ugh, I'm upset with you or whatever, but ugh, she's type 1. Like I
Yeah.
should feel like don't do that to me. And so I just wanted to hide it as much as possible. I don't know. I think out of like an embarrassment almost. And I hated attention. I hated attention on me. And everyone was being kind about it. And like, I want to make sure you're okay. Like, get the nurses. I was like, no. I was like, I will get up and the fact that I had to raise my hand to like go anywhere or do
Yeah.
anything, like, I just did not want that.
Mhm.
And then, I think even in high school when it came to like meeting new people or friends or yeah, then it's like, oh, yeah, my grandmother died from that. And I'm like, cool. Well, it's not that. Like it's time and or I just never felt comfortable with it. And I honestly, it was when Bella got into like Dancing for Diabetes and the first time seeing Elizabeth, where I was just like, because I was always the oldest with
Yeah.
it. And so it was like seeing Elizabeth, like, oh, okay. Like she very much doesn't make it her whole life, her whole identity, which I felt like other people around me my age did.
Yeah.
And then I was like, I think I can do that. I think I can have a healthy balance of like type 1 is a part of me,
Mm-hmm.
but it doesn't define me.
And I know one thing that I'm been really, I think, struggling with and trying to figure out for Palmer even, and obviously I would love both of your opinion on this, is like, how can a company like Palmer, where we want to embrace type 1 diabetes, we want people to be proud. Like we've joked saying that we want type 1 diabetics to look at Palmer and be proud of what we are doing, what we represent, right? But without it screaming, you're different,
Yeah.
right? Like,
Yeah.
how do you find that balance between two of it? Because we do hear people say about like, oh, you're making clothes for, type 1 diabetics. Like, I don't want to be different. And I'm like, no, that's the thing is we don't want you to be different. We want to make
Right.
clothes that me and you wear, that it doesn't matter if you're type 1 diabetic or not. We're embracing the same clothes, but there's a mission behind it. And we're doing certain garments that are made for type 1 diabetics to hopefully make their life easier, hide the equipment. So again, you're not sitting there flashing your insulin pump around everywhere, but you're also not having to hide it fully where you can't even access it.
Yeah. And I
But we're
think it's not even so much
Yeah.
hiding it. It's like really like making it comfortable for you guys and like not having to worry like, oh my God, is my pump gonna fall off right now? Like, is it gonna fall out? Is it gonna break? Like we just dealt with Parker breaking at recess. His pump broke because a soccer ball went into it. And it's like, we want to avoid stuff like that. And we get comments of saying like, oh, we don't want to be different. You shouldn't like be putting like focus on it. And then like, like kind of like a pity thing on people. And it's like, we're not. It's like, we're trying to embrace like what we have. Like you said, like it is a part of you. Like however you try to like slice it, it's a part of you and it's a part of both of our kids' life. But it's like, how can we make your life a little bit easier in the sense of you feel good wearing the clothing, but then you also feel like your equipment is safe.
Yeah. I don't know. I think like I wish I had clothing growing up.
Yeah,
With-
especially with
I
like
could
dresses and long
Yes.
sleeves. Like I love my dress so much. It looks the same as every other one.
Yeah.
Mhm.
But like it's secluded and it's like it's nice and safe and I feel just so comfortable in it. And like I like you guys are doing a really good job at that. Like
Yeah.
thanks.
I seriously, like I think that's such an amazing there's so many times where I've worn dresses or skirts or whatever and it's like, okay, now how do I make my pump?
And then we'll have
With
to like
things.
layer under
Yeah, that's what layer on
would be
and
short.
then you're like, okay,
They're
so
so
now the skirt isn't even fitting me because it's like the amount of layering I have to do. Or like when the pump, you're wearing a dress and the pump slips and you're like, there's not even a restroom nearby.
Exactly.
And then you're like, okay, you have to find a corner, have a friend, and I'm like, hold the
God,
dress
that
down.
just happened to me the other day. Yeah.
And yeah, so I think the clothes that y'all are doing are like amazing because it's not making them what's that word? It's not like what is it? Equity, not equality, but it's where like you're giving someone, these clothes, but like here's how these clothes can work for you.
Mhm.
Yeah.
And so yeah, the clothes are gonna be different, but that's because at the end of the day, you are type 1 diabetic.
Yeah.
You are different. But it doesn't have to be this like advertised thing.
Yeah.
You just
I mean,
yeah.
people should know about it. Like
Yeah.
that's what's so important because
Yeah.
I don't know, like it makes us feel seen,
Right.
like especially growing up, well, her more than me, like having to grow up without all that stuff and like it being not as accessible and
Yeah.
it was just really hard to find that kind of stuff and like I'm just a girl. Like I want to dress up. I want to wear my dresses and my rompers and like
Yeah.
I feel like I couldn't even wear what I wanted to. Like
And it's like a privilege to have a pump.
exactly.
Like,
It
having
is,
this
yeah.
car, yeah, it's such a privilege to have a pump. And it's like, well, how do I make that work within the clothing that I want to wear?
Yeah,
And that's
now what?
Yeah, y'all are doing.
And then I really think too, it's a conversation starter where, and we talked about this on our episode with Elizabeth, where not every time we meet someone new, if they know about Palmer, we don't have to be like, oh, these are the 2 kids that have type 1 diabetes. It's like that conversation has already been like had because we're doing Palmer, we support type 1 diabetes, and like we're a family that support type 1 diabetes. So I do feel like a sense of the kids like liking it because it's like that conversation starter and that piece of the conversation was already had, so they don't have to like go through it every time they meet somebody. But I also shared before my nephews had a birthday party and they had like a bunch of their friends and Parker was there. He was only type 1 there, and part of the party was pizza for dinner and then an ice cream bar afterwards. And my sister consulted with me before and she's like, what can I get them? Like that will not, make them spike too much. But a little kid was in front of Parker and Nick told Parker, hey, get your pump out, start giving yourself insulin. And the little boy overheard it and said, oh, like, what are you doing? So then Parker goes, oh, I have type 1 diabetes. And he goes, like, starts talking about the pancreas not working. And, he has to give himself insulin. And it's based on the carbs of, like, explaining it. And the little boy was younger than Parker. And the little boy goes, wow, I would have a problem with that because I drink a lot of caffeine. But, like, that's where his little brain, like, made sense of it of, like, it was caffeine, and, like, it was humorous, and Parker and I, like, looked at each other, he noticed that I heard it too, and we had a good little laugh, but it's like, I don't know, I guess, like, we obviously grew up in a different time, but fear I feared kids back then, like, were more mean and not, like, talking about certain things and very much like, let's not give someone a reason to pick on me kind of thing. And I feel like now I'm so glad the world we're living in of like, we can have these conversations, these little kids can ask questions, and then like this little boy tried to find a way to relate to Parker with like, oh, like caffeine, I like a lot of caffeine. So it's just really like, I love doing that. And I love experiencing that through Palmer of like, seeing all like the neighborhood kids like wearing our clothes, and it's like none of them have type 1, but they're all doing it because they love it, and then they like want to support Parker and Evie, so it's a great feeling overall.
Yeah. And we love the fact too, Bella, that you get the model for us. And because not everybody that has been able to model for us have been able to be a type 1 diabetic, but you are. And it's amazing because we love being able to show off your equipment. Like
Yeah.
we did photos showing your Dexcom and really just embracing it that like, you still look beautiful with the equipment on your arms and all those type of things. And so, that's really what we want to do. It's like we want other type 1 diabetics to go out there and feel good about what they're wearing
Right.
at the end of the day, where it's not just about the clothes, but they feel confident in it and knowing that I can feel and be confident in myself because of the clothes that I'm wearing. If you are type 1 diabetic, or if you're not, or you have a loved one with it, you can go out there and represent. And then the other side too is, there's a lot of companies out there, and again, there's nothing wrong with it. It's just not what we want to do. Where, they're making we'll say cheesy t-shirts saying like, hey, I'm a type 1 diabetic, or my pancreas has died, or whatever. Yes, there's some funny ones you can laugh at. But like you said, at that point, you're being a walking billboard kind of announcing that.
Get that.
And it's just not really like a lot of people have done it. Again, if you're doing that and you love those things, good for you. It's not for everybody. And, that's why we want to do something different with the clothes that we're building and hopefully make it that people can embrace it and feel good and confident about themselves.
And I feel like type 1 diabetes is so hard to begin with. It's like, let's not make your life harder with your clothes options.
Right.
That's another thing. Like, yeah, like, the t-shirts are funny and you can support them and you can wear them, but it's also like that t-shirt doesn't really, unless it has like a slit somewhere, like it's really not helping you in any sort of way. So that's really our mission of like finding these clothing. And we even talked about it this weekend of like really honing in on our core products that we're going to provide for every gender and for kids too. And then getting like a prototype of it and then just really testing it out with diabetics out there because Nick and I don't have type 1 diabetes. We have 2 kids with it. And then it's like, okay, well, we don't have like an adult girl with it. Like, so it's like different things that we go through that it's like, we really want to make sure that we're honing in for every diabetic for every age. And then for them to just like feel good about it. Like, even the fact that like, and I know like Parker and Evie talk about it, but it's like feeling like you're not, because you can feel alone with type 1 diabetes. So feeling like you're not alone and there's a community out there that, we support you and your clothes shouldn't be a more difficult part of your day.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I hope I can do that for people. Like, not only a model for the clothes, but like a model of like what can be like, how confident people can feel with it, and like like if I were to see that when I was little, I'd be like, "Oh my gosh, like I want that. Like I wanna look like that. I wanna look like happy and stuff." And like I have seen like on I think it was like American Eagle or something.
Yeah.
I saw
Yeah.
a type 1 diabetic model, and I was like, "Oh my gosh, like it's not like they have something on them." Like at the Grammys, like
Yeah.
it was a dancer with with like a pop.
I think
There's like a model too, like recently that she walks like the red carpets with her. Yeah, with everything on. Yeah, her
Yeah,
crown.
yeah, and even like all over social media, like TikTokers and stuff. It's just so cool to be able to see those people
Mhm.
and see like everyone is beautiful, and that they're like thriving with it and they're confident with it, and it makes me feel more confident with it.
Yeah.
Because I mean, it can be a struggle for me sometimes, like, if I'm wearing, like, crop tops or something, I feel really insecure about, like, my scar tissue and stuff, and then about, like, my pump being, like, too bulky and stuff, and it is definitely, like, a fashion problem, like, as I'm a little fashionista, like, I don't wanna wear the clothes I wanna wear, but it does hold you back a little bit, so it's nice to see other people, like, look like that and talk about it, and then especially with the clothes that you guys make, like, again, the dress, like,
Yeah.
the pump fits so perfectly and, like,
Mhm.
stuff like that. It's the little
Yeah,
things.
and I think it's so important that, men or boys and girls and people really of all ages have somebody to look up to, right? And so I know with Parker, he's super into soccer right now, and he was discouraged about things, and we're like, well, let's look up what pro soccer players have type 1 diabetes.
And there's so many of them.
And there is quite a lot, right? And it was amazing to see him. And it was funny because we had this whole conversation. It was at the beach last year. He kind of had one of his moments where I'm sure you
Yeah.
have gone through it, where like you say that breakdown, like, why am I different? Why do I have all this, right? And just really just trying to support him, love on him, tell him that's gonna be okay. But it really felt like he just felt so different at that point.
Yeah.
And so that's what I did is I looked out and I was like, "Hey, let's look up some of these soccer players." Well, it just happened to be that was during some big international tournament.
Gosh.
And then, like, literally the next day, one of the guys, his name is Nacho, is playing. And
Yeah.
on TV, we put up, I'm like, "Hey, where's Nacho? He's not." Oh. And then we see him on there, and you can see his, like, Dexcom while he's playing in this big international tournament. That made all the difference in the world, right? Because I think we all need that little bit of support and encouragement saying, no, you're not going to be held out. Just how you looked at Elizabeth and say, wow, she is a strong businesswoman, smart, embracing it. It never defined her, right? And that's the thing is like you want to make people feel confident in themselves and know you can do anything as a type 1 diabetic. Right? Yes, you have some different challenges, but you're going to take those things, embrace it, and become stronger because of it
Yeah.
at the end of the day.
Right.
So, did you girls do like after school activities or sports or anything with having type 1?
Did we?
We were both in the marching band. We went through the same program, so
I
yeah.
was in color guard. Let's just make that known.
I marched for 2 years, and then I was a drum major, which is like a conductor for the other two. Um, it's really intense. Like people don't really talk about that much, but marching band, we were a competitive marching band team.
Yeah.
So
Hmm.
yeah.
Yeah, I started dancing, like doing dance after school at like elementary school age. And then in middle school, did my stint as like volleyball and dance and all that stuff. And then in high school, did color guard. And yeah, like I remember just being in color guard, I taught my coach a lot about type 1 diabetes.
Yeah.
And he was a very just military style man, and it came to like, teaching and very little water breaks. And then at one point I was like, listen, my blood sugar is like 250. We're out here in the heat. Like for my body, I have to get a water break. And then he was like, oh my God. He's like, you're so right. And then he started implementing water breaks.
Yeah.
I'm not. And then like, would be like, okay, let's just make sure that you have everything that you need. But yeah, it was, I don't, again, at the time when I was in high school, the Dexcom wasn't talking with the pump. So it still came with like a lot of like, okay, I do have to put my finger. I do have to manipulate my pump. I do have to whatever. And like, truth be told, because I didn't want to talk about it and because it just was so difficult to manage, I think I'd ride high like most of the time. Not HIGH, but like
Yeah.
250, 300. I was like,
HIGH. So true. When you see those letters, you're like, what's
but because I was like, type 1 will not stop me. So just because I'm high, I'm still going to put as much as I can out on that performance. And like, you're not going to stop me during a practice. You're not going to whatever, which looking back now, I'm like, babe, just down to like give yourself insulin and drink some water. And that's okay. But yeah, it was pretty fun, like these after school activities, but very difficult to.
So how would you manage it? Like, were you constantly looking? Were you pricking yourself? I mean, at the time there wasn't that much technology where you look like, how are you managing it?
So the Dexcom had like own CGM. So I'd carry that, and then I'd carry my glucometer with me, and then I had my pump with me.
And then was it really like knowing your body?
Yeah,
like-
it fully was just like, okay, I'm feeling low.
Okay.
Like what's going on? Or okay, I'm starting to feel high. And like in high school, I could have been like, my blood sugar is 120 and I would be 120. Like I just would have to really know my body. And it was only when I was like, okay, I'm getting too high, I need to step out. Or okay, I'm getting too low, I need to step out. But it was basically like, before every practice, checking my blood sugar, every single break, I was like, okay, let's check the blood sugar. Okay, but this and then whatever. And I'm, again, not saying that was good management, but that was just what I had to do, what I felt like I had to do for no one to worry about me, for me to feel as minimally on top of it as possible, and to continue on with my practice.
So this is an interesting question because I asked this to Elizabeth if she shares access to her numbers with anybody, and she doesn't. She only shared it with when she was pregnant to like the nurse or the midwife that was helping her out. But besides that, like her husband doesn't have access to it. So do you guys share your numbers?
Yeah.
With your parents?
I share with my parents, I share with my boyfriend, and I share it with a bunch of my camp friends from Northeast Camp, and like Sophia and Sadie that from Touched by Type 1 and Dancing for Diabetes. They have it on silent, obviously.
Yeah.
But and then whenever I go to like sleepovers, their parents. But yeah, definitely my parents.
So do you guys like, so there are other type 1 diabetic girls too. So you like share each other's numbers, and do you guys like talk about it? Like, oh, like, are you doing okay? Like, I saw you were high. Like,
Yeah, or like it's so fun to like see our numbers and see how close we are to each other. It's just like it's again, it's the little things, so it makes us so happy when we're like the same, even like 2 apart. And then I'll take like a screenshot. My mom will like send us screenshots sometimes if like me and my sisters are the same, and it makes us so happy. Like it's just so
I know
cool.
we literally celebrate when Parker and Ethan are the same.
Yeah, so there was a point, and we posted it on a story, and I just thought like I was on the top of the world.
He was putting himself on a pedestal.
Took a screenshot because it had both the kids at 100 sideways. And I'm just like,
He's like, am I good or am I good?
I am at the top of the world. I am like, all right, we can all go home now. I've done it. I've accomplished life. But I was so like proud. I'm like, we need to post this on social media. The world needs to know, like, news report.
Yeah.
I'm crushing it right now. For at least this next 5 minutes before the updates, they're both at 100 sideways. But it was that feeling of accomplishment, right? And like, yeah, it's just so funny how
double the accomplishment.
But I didn't even think about that. Like, I wonder if like the kids will grow up and like start sharing it with like their friends and stuff.
I don't follow her, or she doesn't follow. Like my parents can see our numbers
Got it.
together.
But you guys don't follow each other. Yeah.
I'm a different mindset. I did not want to share my numbers with my parents, but they were like, this is the non-negotiable. So then
Mhm.
my non-negotiable was, okay, my blood sugar is running high. You can't say anything. But if it's running low, feel free to message me.
Yeah.
And so like that's what happened. And then I shared it with my best friend because whenever we drink and if I'm just like, hey, I'm tired, I'm gonna go to sleep, she's like, great, I'll monitor, I'll look at your blood sugar or whatever type of thing. And then I just recently, through Touch for Type 1, I've met 2 other girls that are Type 1 diabetics that we've become friends. And I don't think it's crossed our minds once to share our Dexcom just because I think that we're just like I think we're all similar mindsets of like, I just need to focus on mine. I don't need
Oh yeah. Oh no. Like I turn alarms off because it's the same noise. Weird. Yeah. Yeah. But it's just cool to like just look at sometimes.
Yeah.
Mhm. Wow. So that's a lot of crazy stuff right there. So I want to jump back over to Bella real quick because we want to hear a little bit more about your diagnosis and your experience growing up, going through middle school and high school and all those as well.
Okay, so when I was diagnosed, it was in like 2011. Um I was pretty young. I only had a few memories of before I was diagnosed. So I didn't really understand the world without it. I, there was a lot of technology. Like my story is going to be very different from my sister's because there was a lot of technology like it was growing very rapidly and just getting better. I started off with shots. I actually remember when I would, like, run away from my mom and, like, hide in a cabinet. There was this I can picture it right now. If I were to go to my old house, this cabinet right here, I used to sit right here because I hated shots so much.
Yeah.
And I don't know, like, it was just it's like a sob story, but, like, I just laugh at it because I mean, that's all you can do, like,
Mhm.
Yeah.
um but yeah, and then like before elementary school, like BPK. So there was no clinic, there was no nurse. It was a teacher that my parents had to train to help me. And I didn't like again, like I hated shots, and then having this new person in my life, like it was
Where are you hiding from her?
it was a little fun though, because I was like, I get to get out of class and like go to this special classroom and
Yeah, Parker loves that, getting to pick his buddy to like walk him down.
yeah.
And I guess now he aged out of that, but Evie still,
age out.
yeah,
Come on.
Evie still gets it. But I remember I think it was like my first Valentine's Day, like us being married. And Parker got a little Valentine's Day card from a girl in his class, and it said, I hope you feel better soon from your type 1 diabetes. And it's almost like she thought it was like he had a cold or something. But it was like the cutest thing. I'm like, for her to even like put that in there, embrace that about him, like it was super cute.
That's adorable. Yeah, I remember like in elementary school getting to pick a buddy and go to the clinic and then like becoming so close with the clinic. I think I had 2 or 3 clinic assistants and like they're like my aunts. Like
They're a family member. Every holiday they get like, yes, if I could give them like an organ, I probably would. Because it helps with social like,
and it's like it must be so stressful like having to deal with like all these 5-year-olds with like stomach aches and like
yeah.
and then there's me. Yeah, and then like every Friday I got to pick out a toy from like the little toy bin. I just felt so special, you know?
Mhm.
Um and I remember like at the playground and stuff, these kids would like ask if I was like a zombie and if it was what's the word? Like
Continue.
yeah, there is it contagious? And it was really frustrating having to explain, but yeah, and then around like 4th and 5th grade, I started getting really independent with it. And it was really exciting for me because it was just so freeing. Um, and like I would just go into the teacher's closet to like check my blood sugars and stuff.
Mhm.
And it was just so much easier because I could stay with my class, I could stay with my friends. And again, it was just so relieving. not having to rely on anyone. It's like driving. Like I
Yeah.
got my license. Like I can finally like be on my own.
Mhm.
And then middle school, it was an easier transition because I learned how to be independent like earlier on.
Mhm.
And then I it was I don't know, like I didn't really have to explain it as much because they weren't as like curious, and a couple of my friends had it by then,
Mhm.
like at my schools. Um, but it was really nice to like for the people that actually care about you to help you and like ask questions. Like it might be annoying to some people, but at least for me, I felt so loved by them
Yeah.
because they wanted to learn about it, they wanted to help me out. And going into high school was like the same thing. But we were talking about band earlier, and that took a while to get used to. I had to, like, learn the difference between feeling that my blood sugar was actually high
Mhm.
and being genuinely so thirsty from the Florida summer heat on the parking lot. Like,
Yeah.
it was a big learning experience, and it definitely helped me, like, outside of that too,
Mhm.
just knowing my body. One hard thing was, I hate being a person that just gives out excuses, like, I don't wanna be seen that way,
Yeah.
especially, like, my sophomore, junior, and senior year, I was, like, in leadership,
Mhm.
and then I ended up being very high leadership
Mhm.
in my band, and I just didn't wanna be seen that way, like but then I also didn't wanna explain it because I feel like I don't owe that to everyone,
Mhm.
even though I should, like, be a spokesperson for myself, but I just like what she said, like, there were times where I probably should have, like, sat and taken a break, and I just didn't, but I'm here now, so, it was really hard to balance and, just learn, but definitely by my senior year, like, it was much easier to take care of. I would pop a glucose tablet in, and my band director was so understanding, like, whenever he hears literally anything that sounds like a device,
Yeah.
he freaks out. He's like, "Bella, are you okay?" He'll stop everything and be like, "Are you okay?" Yeah, and it is really embarrassing, and I don't like it at times, but I'd rather that than have someone not be understanding, so
Mhm.
that's why you have to advocate for yourself. But yeah, it was definitely hard because I'm like a no excuses type of person.
Yeah.
But that really helped me become stronger and like really push myself,
Mhm.
but also take care of myself. So
Yeah.
yeah, it's like that's my
Yeah.
journey.
And I think that's what we like preach on here, and especially on this podcast of like self-care. Like not only for just the diabetics, but also everyone involved in it, yeah, caregivers with it, or just like you as a human being, like going through it, like you have to take a break. Like we don't have type 1 diabetes, but like now I've gotten to a point where I know he's reaching burnout. And like in
Yeah.
his mind, he's like, oh, I just need to write this one email. And then once I do that, I feel a little more accomplished and then I'll rest. And it's like, you never get to that point where you like just stop completely. And then you end up like moving yourself backwards because you're burned out. You're not actually getting anything accomplished. So it's really like focusing on like even these micro breaks. And I've really taken advantage of those. I quickly realized when I became in their part of their family of I really like sleep and how much I enjoy my sleep and how much like
One.
yeah, as I don't get a lot of sleep sometimes. But yeah, it's like Nick has 10 years on me with doing type 1 diabetes, and I, like, kept, like, feeling bad about myself, and I'm like, "Well, I'm just a loser because, like, Nick can handle it, and here I am, like, so tired, like, dragging throughout my day." And it's like, no, like, giving myself the permission of, like, if I need to take a 15-minute mental break, I'm gonna do it, and I'm not gonna feel guilty about it because it's just actually gonna make me be able to move forward. So let's talk about something fun that we haven't talked about yet. So dating with type 1 diabetes. So do you guys have any stories of how you went about like introducing it?
Honestly, I've only had one boyfriend. I've only had one thing. Um and we've been together for 4 years. So it's definitely like become a lot easier. I honestly didn't like bombard him with anything
Yeah.
right away. I just like kind of let it like um
Naturally.
yeah, like naturally he got used to it.
Mm-hmm.
But I don't know, like I started by sharing my blood sugars, and then that's when he would learn like, hey, like your alarm's going off, your blood sugar's a little lower, and then I would explain things to him. And then there's like, oh, when I get really, really angry when I'm low. And then there's those learning experiences. And I'm like one time it happened, I was like really angry with him when we were like taking the bus home. And I like it was a good chance to like let him know after, like, hey, I'm gonna get like this and I'm really sorry. Like, I can't do anything about it. Like, cause when you're low, like you just lash
You're
out.
angry.
Like,
Yeah.
yeah, like you just need to take care of yourself, get better, and not worry about anything else. And that was a really good conversation plan. Like, hey, don't
He have his alarms on?
no,
No?
no, not like it'll buzz, but not at night.
Oh, okay.
Because my parents have it.
Yeah.
So I don't need anyone else. And
Yeah.
like I'm trying to like become more independent in my blood sugars overnight specifically. So I need to get used to it. I need to get myself up and not have to rely on anyone.
Yeah.
So
That's kind
yeah.
of what I would now, like, talking with them, I feel like if Parker and Evie were older and I came into their lives, I think they would have told me, like, don't have it on at all times because
Yeah.
it will drive you crazy. But, like, I came in and I'm like, I'm going to be, like, super stepmom. Like, you can do whatever. Like, it was funny because he's really into, like, board games and having game nights. And when we would have the kids, like, he wouldn't do it as often. And I'm like, oh, you can do it. And then we quickly realized that, like, first of all, I don't know, it's like the diabetes gods up there. They know when, like, Nick's gonna be out of the house for a few hours, and it's just me in charge because everything that could go wrong with the equipment goes wrong on both of their equipments. And it's like, we don't have internet, like, I'm not getting numbers. It's like manifested.
It really does.
So, like, and it even happens, like, till this day. Like, it just happened, like, a few months ago that happened, and it's like, now I'm at a point where I can, like, better handle it. It doesn't, like, but I still get, like, anxious. I'm like, ah! But it's just, like, really figuring out, like,
Yeah, you
what you can balance.
learning it's too, like, yeah.
Yeah, I remember I had a moment with Evie, and she was 30s. She was, like, super low. That girl, she was, like, running around, like, playing. She had no idea she was that low. It'd be like, and I got the LOW on my phone, and I'm like, so then we, like, pricked her because I'm like, is this correct?
Right.
And she was actually even lower, and I was, like, freaking out. And she's just like, it's fine, Beck. Like, we're gonna be good. And I'm like, okay, wait, like, have some Gatorade, please. Like, keep drinking. And, like,
It was so annoying when I was little, like when I just wanted to play. I was like, I feel fine. Even today.
See, this is a hot topic. Because when I got low when I was a kid, I honestly loved it because I love snacking. So I was just like, yes, I could finally have some Chips Ahoy or something. So I was like, I would enjoy my lows. But also, like, as I got older, I was like, if you just treat the low, the quicker you treat the low, the quicker your life goes on. Just for me, up until recently, I definitely saw like type 1 as black and white, which I'm not suggesting that at all. But growing up, I was just like, just treat it, move on, just go like to move on. And so this one, she likes to wait until the lowest low possible. No shame in her gain. I'm not, I'm just, but then I will tell her, she's like, I'm just, and again, this is like the 4th time, 5th time this has happened, but she's just like,
It's a lot.
I'm like 50 going, and then she gets mean. Like she gets like mean when she's low. Whereas for me, I just like, don't talk to me, get me the juice, and then we'll be fine. But just we're good. This one sits down on the floor, starts getting attitude with me, and then I think the only one in the family that can be like, well, if you treated this at 70, like one would, it was like we wouldn't be getting to this spot, would we, or whatever. And then anyway, but just again, something that I feel like we can laugh, talking about. But yeah, so
what's the scariest moment you've had with type 1 diabetes? Like a really super low or like something at night or something that has happened?
Well, yeah, I mean, I don't really remember the beginning ones, but I think like before the Dexcom or when you would have to like constantly correct the Dexcom with finger pricks, overnight it was really hard. Like I had a couple seizures, and then even with the Dexcom, I had like 2 seizures like way past those points. In like middle school, that's definitely really scary.
So what happened? So you're just in your room alone and then like does your
I think I like yell for my parents or like I just start screaming. I don't really know.
okay. Side note, that's crazy that you say that because Parker and Evie do that too. They just scream. And they've never had like in a moment of a seizure or anything like that. But there's been a time where Parker had like the stomach flu and he started like vomiting or feeling like he's gonna vomit at night. And that screeching scream, I'm like, someone's dead in this household. Like someone came in, someone's dead. Like we're about to walk into a murder scene.
Right.
And it's just him hugging the toilet. And I'm like, oh, I'm dead. Like, call 911 for me because I had a heart attack. But yes, the
Yes.
screaming is a real thing.
Mm-hmm.
Well, I've seen your seizure, so I can like yes. Because I'll say like I was in college for the first half. I did live at home, and so I remember and my room was right next to hers, and so she does have a scream. But I had heard her blood sugar going low. My parents' room was across, and I was just like, I'll just give you some juice. And so I went and gave her some juice. Oh yeah, I used to do that. And then I was like, I saw her low, but her low was not. I'm thinking seizure low 30s below. Yeah, it was still like 40, like dropping down 50s, 40s. And then I'm like, oh, Bella, you're low, really? And then she's drinking juice, and then I'm like, you feel really. She's like, I feel really, really low. And then I'm like,
And my speech would get
slower. And I started, and then I yelled. I was like, Mom, and then she yelled like that kind of like that's that like high pitch.
but it just feels like uncontrollable. You have to like let it out. So
And then you have seconds. Like from that scream, you have seconds, and you see that person just going into, because it's not just seizures, it's also hallucinations. So they start going into this hallucination and then going into the seizure, and then when both parents come, the lights, like it's like
yeah,
both parents come, the lights turn on, it turns into like almost like a horror scene. Like I think like that's how to like explain it.
Emergency or heard anything about the hallucinations, which is like fascinating that like that's a part
it
of
feels
it.
like you're trapped. Like all I remember is like the screaming, the slurred speech, and then like the hallucin. I would have these like specific. It was really weird. These specific hallucinations. Like it feels like you're like. Do you remember Wet and Wild? Like the it. I haven't even gone, but it's like this like slide, and it just feels like you're falling, and like it's just so uncontrollable, and it's just this craziness. Or like one time, it was just like really scary. It was like a nightmare almost.
Oh no.
And yeah, and then you just wake up, and then there's like EMTs, and I'm like, whoa, it's really weird. And then or like my dad would like hold me, and then my mom would be like in charge of juice. And then I would wake up, and it was so trippy, like getting back to reality.
Yeah.
And then it's just so weird. It's
Yeah.
a very, very
But was that when the Goo Goo Gone? What's it called?
gone.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yes.
Goo Goo Gone. I'll remix the name for it, guys. Is that when that comes into play? Like when you had to give that when
So I can speak from like the parental side for her. So basically, you try to treat the low with juice, right? The juice is not working because then once they start seizing, their mouth starts clenching.
Yeah.
And then kind of like option A and option B. Like I know like when I was a child, like if you get icing and put it on your finger and then you put it on the inside of their cheek, that's the quickest way to get into the bloodstream, sugar to get in the bloodstream and shoot it up. But then it's kind of like if you're seizing, your mouth is clenching, you can't get inside their mouth. Okay, now you got to get a glucagon, and then which is so funny. Which now they have the Nexemi, I believe, which is the nasal one. Which thank God, because the glucagon you have to like. It's this vial of like liquid powder, not liquid, it's powdered sugar, right? And then, or some type of powder in there that you have to mix the liquid in. And then,
Like we don't
and then
see these specific amazing.
and then like I can't imagine being a single parent, because at least with her, my dad would always like hold her,
Right.
yeah.
and then my mom would figure out the glucagon situation, and then my dad inject her, and then after that, it's just like a waiting game of like, okay, the blood sugar, but the blood sugar does like skyrocket up, but so
I remember I had a scary low recently, and my mom like back to the dating thing or whatever.
Mhm.
My mom had to give my boyfriend like one of the
The Nexami.
the nasal thing,
Mm.
and he keeps one in his backpack now because honestly, it's really just that. Like, if I don't have anything, if people don't know what to do, there needs to be someone that can help me that has like
Yeah.
the most important thing for a scary low like that.
Yeah.
So
So how many is it, like, within minutes that you come back to it after seizing, or could it be, like, hours?
So for me, my main thing was like I know that I probably seized as a child, but as with remembering it, it was like hallucinations. And so like whenever I would see like that whole monster thing, like my dad would be a monster, but my mom would be calming. So then I remember like one of my last like when I was 9, 10, like my dad had to like hide under the bed. Like not under the bed, but like so where I wouldn't see him and I just saw my
oh
mom.
my gosh.
Wow.
And then I actually did hallucinate, but like not. I came home from a color guard or performance or whatever, and it was just my grandmother home. And I was taking a shower, and I was just like, I know my blood sugar was going low before the shower. I was like 60 or whatever, but I was like, I'm gonna treat myself after. Like, it's fine. I'm gonna take a quick shower. And in the shower, it felt like I was in that 70s show, and I was just seeing a whole bunch of like tie dye.
I love
Hey,
us
so we're this all in.
Well,
I'm
that's
legit.
what I
I'm
was
like
thinking.
sitting there and because I'm like 16 at this point. Like I know what's up. And I'm just like, this is crazy. I was like, I must be really low. And so then I get out of the shower or whatever. I'm just sitting in my parents' room for some reason. It was in the townhome. And my grandmother's sitting at the table. And then I'm like, hey, can you please get me some juice? Like, and the fact that I'm asking anyone to get them juice, like, that's very odd. And so she was like, okay. And I'm just sitting on her bed and I'm straight up just seeing tie dye all over me. I literally felt like it was in that 70s show. And then, and my grandmother got me some juice and I was like, and I didn't want to freak her out. She's probably just like, oh, she just needed some juice, whatever. And I'm like, cool. And so then I just start drinking the juice and it took me like 10 minutes and I was like, I fully had a hallucination and I just didn't, and I handled it really well. But I was like,
Yeah, you did.
but then my last and latest one was right before I was in college. I was living at home, and I just had a hallucination of like being late to class for this like specific lab, whatever. And then I guess I screamed or something, and I was sitting in my mom's car. I had walked within this hallucination to my mom's car.
Oh, like you physically
I
did
physically walked,
Wow.
and then I came to, and my mom was like, "Hey," and she had given me juice, and I think you come to like in the first like 5 minutes, you're kind of like, "Whoa," and then you have like I don't know about you, but I get this really unsettled like feeling like, again, like, oh my god, for some seconds of or some minutes or whatever of my life, I have no clue what happened.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's really overwhelming. Like,
Yeah.
I think I usually just cry. Like, I was being so honest. Like, I
You
wake up.
come out of it, yeah. I can imagine. So is there, and this might be a dumb question, but are certain people more prone to seizures with type 1 diabetes versus others, or it's just it could just happen to anyone that has type 1?
I don't know anyone else who's had this, to be honest with you. Like I have so many diabetic friends, and I've never really heard. Like, I've heard a lot of scary stories, like hallucinations and stuff.
Yeah.
But I
But
don't.
never the seizing, yeah.
I don't know.
Yeah.
Definitely something I asked a doctor.
As we kind of wrap things up, I would love to know from both of you, is there any advice that you would give a young girl who is going through middle school, high school, any encouragement you might be able to give them to, push them through that have type 1 diabetes?
I think my just because I left college recently, I think my best advice to, a high schooler kind of going into college is I think on that emotional level, like find like find a way where, you have that acceptance that you are type 1 diabetic. Like have come to that self-acceptance that this is ultimately a part of me. Um but don't feel like that needs to define you. And when you're studying for your exams and you feel super overwhelmed and you're thinking like, but why can my friend do this and it be easy? Like give yourself grace, give yourself kindness, give yourself understanding, because ultimately, yeah, they're doing the same all-nighter as you, but they are not dealing with type 1 diabetes. They do not have to go through this. So it's gonna feel harder for you. And just kind of find, like, I think, when I wish I had knowing going to college was find a routine for yourself within type 1. Like, find, like, okay, every Sunday, let me look at my Dexcom Clarity and see what's going on and adjust as needed. Take your type 1 seriously and don't let it overcome you.
Love that.
Yeah.
Mine would be very similar, especially with the give yourself grace part, because a big part of what I struggle with is like putting my health first, like putting myself first. Like
Yeah.
those academics, like you wouldn't be here without your help. Like you have to make that a priority. And just find people who understand and like who can relate to you, because that just makes you feel so like seen. Like feeling alone is like the worst part of it. Um but yeah, definitely put your health first. Um take breaks, like what you said. Find ways to embrace it.
But burnout, like, so that gets so real.
Oh yeah, like burnout, it gets really bad, and that's like a that's what I mean. Like I would put everything else first, to the point where I was like pushing myself, pushing my limits. Like you shouldn't, like, don't let yourself get to that point.
So I remember one time you were giving yourself a break. You didn't have the equipment on. So maybe if you want to talk about that, like, like
Mhm.
giving your body a break, but you're still on top of it.
There's so many opportunities for diabetics, like equipment wise. You can give yourself breaks. Like it's not gonna be a break. Right, but a pump break. Like just go on shots for a little bit. Like take those different avenues and just let your body breathe. And it might be hard for just a week, but it's really freeing. So one thing I've learned recently is like you have to, like, there's no other option. Like you have to take care of yourself. So again, like coming to terms with that, like just accepting the fact that this is what you have to live with and you have to move on. um like find ways, not I'm not gonna say like flat out find ways to cope, like just cope. No, like I go through, I make jokes about it. Like not everyone can understand that, but I try to be so lighthearted and I just make the most out of any situation. Like if someone else made those jokes about me,
Yeah.
I would lose it.
There's a
But
fine line.
yeah, there's a fine line. Just not have fun with it, but like find ways to have fun with it. And like what she said, like this other girl is pulling an all-nighter, but I have to pull an all-nighter with diabetes, and it makes it so much harder. But finding those accomplishments, like with having diabetes as a major obstacle, that just makes your accomplishments mean all the more. Like just find ways to be proud of yourself, because it just makes you stronger. Like it makes it cool. Like I'm able to do all this and I have so much more of a hassle. So yeah, it's kind of like a little self-confidence boost, like when you are able to do things, even if it may feel like it's not as often as you want it to be.
Well, both of you ladies are so inspiring. Thank you so much for being here. I can't wait to get this episode out, inspire all these other girls out there with type 1.
Thank you for having us. It's been such an amazing time.
Thanks for tuning in. Bye, Palmr fam.
Bye.